Miami. We put on this event. I'm super proud of my colleagues. And so grateful to all the partners. Like everyone speaking here is a partner of ours that we collaborate with. So I'm super excited. But we have several initiatives around participatory budgeting in particular, and reimagining community safety. I think Gilbert might talk about this too. We do it in partnership with basically everyone on this call, but we host a Divest Invest Coalition space with a lot of these partners. So I will put my email in the chat so you can get signed up through the Google group. Gilbert, I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, so I can like leave it for you to go in more depth because I know you did on the panel.
I'll go for it.
Okay, so basically we got together last year after the murder of George Floyd, and we talked about how can we bring this concept of divesting from police and prisons and investing in our communities. So we did some advocacy around the budget, including asking for a more participatory budgeting process last year. We also, and that was at the county, and at Catalyst, we also do similar organizing at the city around the budget as well through the Miami Climate Alliance. So anyways, I'll type this all up in the chat. I'll tell you how to get plugged in if y'all want to get plugged in a little sooner than you would be on this form. And let me see, anything else with Catalyst? Oh yes, for restructuring Florida's tax system, we go to Tallahassee every year through an event called Catalyst to the Capitol. We are like working with Ida and Karen and so many others, and Florida Policy Institute as well, to start addressing inequities in Florida's tax system. That trip is taking place mid-March this year. It'll be virtual, but and we have kind of like a full roster. Again, the Zoom anxiety, I don't know if we can add on more people, but we will be recruiting for the following year, a little bit later this year, probably in the summer this year. So I will also put that website in the link so y'all can have hopefully an opportunity to go in person to Tallahassee next year and talk about these and other issues. All right, that's my Catalyst pitch. I'm sorry if that was really fast, but I'm so grateful to pass it on to our partners. I'll start with Ida Escamani. She's a policy extraordinaire in the state of Florida. It makes it happen for all of us. And I think like the best thing about the quarantine, if I can say that, was like getting to work with more folks statewide, including Ida. So thank you for being like highlight and joy on a bunch of like horribly long Zoom calls. But I'll pass it to you to share about all the spaces you lead and participate in and how people can plug in.
Thanks, Ilham. Thank you. I'm also so grateful to have gotten to work with you and the whole Catalyst Miami team more closely this past year. Home is Orlando for me, but I'm currently up in Tallahassee for essentially the next 3 months for legislative session. And I am legislative director for Florida for All, which is a coalition that includes Dream Defenders and SEIU and Florida Rising and Faith in Florida, Jobs with Justice, and Florida Immigrant Coalition. And so I basically sort of lead and facilitate a lot of our legislative efforts up in the Capitol. And a lot of it, quite frankly, is trying to stop bad things from happening. This legislature does not reflect the values and the needs of our communities as it currently stands. But a big part of what I do is bringing our people into that process, right? And a lot of the proactive bills that we write are written by our folks and their experiences. And so I'm really proud to be the ears and eyes and voice for our folks, and most importantly, bring those ears and eyes and voices into the process, right? And of course, with COVID, it makes it even more challenging and already very inaccessible process has been made even more restrictive. But love the Catalyst Miami's, session team, and super excited to support in any way that I can. And just the quick thing, and forgive me, I don't know if there's I'll make this quick, but if you want me to elaborate more, please, I'm happy to. But when it comes to restructuring Florida's tax policy, it is a Goliath of an effort. And it's one that our communities haven't always been plugged into because it's inherently complicated, right? These rules have been written by and for the top corporations in the state, the wealthiest donors. They're inherently complicated. They inherently work for them and don't work for us, right? And you gave a shout out, Zalam, to Karen Woodall, and I have to as well. And I think she was on a previous panel. And for the longest time, she's been lobbying in this process for 40 years now. And for the longest time, Karen Woodall has been really carrying that torch around tax equity and creating a tax structure that works for Florida. I've come into this work and learned so much from her and other advocates, and I'm really proud to also now carry that effort for the organizations and people that I have the honor of representing. And we've had some champion lawmakers in the past who have also carried this torch. Senator Rodriguez has been a key champion on that. Even Dan Gelber, when he was in the State House, and Scott Randolph, when they were in the State House years ago, carried this torch as well. And my twin sister, Rep. Escamani, is ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee in the House, and she's been also very much championing this. And the more you dig into it, I'm a big fan of Governor Ruben Askew. I've been reading his biography, and he ran on a campaign platform of creating a corporate income tax. We did not have one in Florida before he became governor. And that was a controversial issue, but he essentially was able to prove that creating a corporate income tax is the fair and right thing to do. It's about creating a progressive tax system in Florida, not regressive, that relies on sales tax and everyday people. And essentially also prove that a tax on profits does not punish and does not lead to less jobs, right? Because it literally fluctuates based on profits. And one of the biggest things he did is he had 2 T-shirts from a Sears. One I think is in Georgia and one in Florida. And he said they're the exact same cost. These shirts cost exactly the same in both states. But in this state, in Georgia, they make this amount of money in tax revenue off of Sears. In Florida, it's $1,500, a licensing fee, and that's it, right? And so educating folks on just what we are missing out and the things that we have to cut because of our regressive tax system, and that things don't have to be this way, is a big part of the work that we need to do on tax reform and creating an equitable tax system in Florida. And it's been decades in the working, right? But the quick update on just how you can get plugged in, we're super excited to work with FPI, Catalyst Miami, and Organized Labor and other partners around launching what we're calling a statewide people's budget, which I know for folks on the ground is a very familiar concept, right? And it's really focusing on educating folks around just the upside down structure of our tax system in Florida and why we have to demand closing corporate tax loopholes by passing policies like combined reporting, ending these corporate giveaways. Y'all, I can tell you the amount of bills that get filed where it's so obviously written by a specific corporation for a specific tax refund, it's hilarious and infuriating. And then on the flip side too, making sure that we don't cut essential services in the state, and that we actually have revenue raisers that are equitable so that we can protect these services. Because right now, the governor has rolled out his budget. It's very optimistic. It's not based on facts. And the legislature is gearing up to cut $2 billion from our state budget. And the only sort of new revenue raiser they're considering is essentially an online sales tax, which again is regressive. It would tax consumers. And there's some benefits to it. Most states do this, taxing out-of-state sellers online, and it would help brick and mortar to sort of level the playing field. But nonetheless, you are closing a consumer tax loophole, and you're completely leaving these corporate tax loopholes wide open. And in fact, the state of Florida may want to permanently reduce the corporate income tax rate in Florida to 4.5%. It's currently supposed to be at 5.5%, but there's been a temporary reduction. Anyway, sorry, I get into the weeds a lot, but my point is the way to get plugged in is to join us for the People's Budget. We're actually launching a website and an action alert that you can basically create your own budget and then send that directly to your lawmaker and tell them, look, I passed a budget that puts my people over corporations. You need to do the same. And we're gonna have some more forums and educational events and things like that around how to get engaged virtually in the state legislature. We had a kickoff 2 weeks ago centering the stories of essential workers and some champion lawmakers. And we're gonna launch that website hopefully in the next couple weeks. A big shout out to Rep. Angie Nixon and Rep. Escamani, Rep. Smith. They've been really anchoring a lot of these efforts, but more to come. So that's a quick update. And hopefully I didn't overwhelm you all with more kind of wonky stuff, but I'm really excited to plug folks into this effort.
Thank you, Ida. If you have any links, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll be sure to email them out to everyone. All right. So, and I don't know. The one thing I want to mention is I think sometimes like budget stuff just sounds boring just because it's like, but if it's not funded, if it's not in the budget, it's likely not happening. And I feel like that's so important in our communities, like in the society that we're in, where your dollar does really express your values. And so like, it's a great way to get government to align with our values, So with that, I'll pass it to Gilbert. If you can share like how people can plug in to engage, what are some exciting things y'all are doing this year, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for having us here. And yeah, we'll also talk a little bit about the budget. But on our end, Engage Miami, we work to build the voice and the power of young people. The ways we do that are through voter engagement, through civic education, and through issue organizing, getting together on the issues that matter to us to try to build the future that we deserve here in Miami. We're a locally focused organization. Last year, what that looked for us, we tried to combine a couple of these things, in part because we had these huge local elections. We got a new county mayor, as folks know. We got 5 new county commissioners because we had some term limits hit for the first time this year in 2020, and we're gonna have another round of this in 2022. So what we developed last year was the Young People's Policy Priorities. We organized between ourselves and our folks. We talked to a lot of our partners. Catalyst, Empower You, and Dream Defenders are all part of the platform to try to identify what are the priorities that we have as young people and try to advance that through engaging candidates and also through the budget. And now that was kind of one project for last year, but we're going to take it going forward and keep on seeing how we can build that platform and make it reality. And we're actually going to have a member orientation in a couple of weeks. Hasn't been announced yet. I'll drop like our Instagram link so folks can follow us and then get the announcement. But we'll serve as a kickoff for the year where folks can come into the organization and learn about the work we're going to do and what we're envisioning and go from there. On that note, one of the big things this year, as it always is for us, is the budget. So we've been advocating at the budget process for 3 years now. We actually had a really encouraging effort in 2018 where we kind of mobilized almost from one day to another. There was this fight going on about bringing early voting sites to college campuses in Miami-Dade. We had one at FIU, but a lot of us thought, we should get at least one at Miami-Dade College as well. There was a coalition around that. The college itself wanted it. So we decided to show it to a budget hearing and say that there should be money allocated for this early voting site. It wasn't exactly a budget issue, but we made it a budget issue and we were able to win. Living Kava actually sponsored a resolution as county commissioner, and it passed, and we got 2 early voting sites at MDC, which is like more than we expected. But kind of sticking to the process from then is we kind of found that was kind of a unique experience and that the budget process isn't really set out currently as it is to be participatory, to bring in those voices. By the time those budget hearings are coming at the end of the process, I was just at the last panel and they were talking about this. A lot of times these hearings come at the end when the cake has already been cooked or baked and it's ready to go and the decision has been made. And one thing they try to do here is they have these budget workshops. Before COVID, they'd have them spread out throughout the county and they did them virtually this year. And the idea is to go out to the community, talk to folks about the budget as it's being put together. The thing is that the budget's kind of put together the whole year. The departments are putting their budgets together. The mayor announces it, and only months later is it that they have these workshops, and they're not an input process at all. They're not participatory at all. What they really are like glorified 10, 12-minute presentations. And then they lead into the budget hearings, one of which is 2 weeks before the budget approved, and the other one, it's literally approved at the end of that meeting. So, it's encouraging that because those public budget workshops are like in the county has to do them. So it's kind of the start of something that could be a lot better if they did those a lot earlier, if they had a whole different format that was getting input from the community and listening to folks instead of like some boring PowerPoint. But we could benefit a lot from participatory budgeting here. Had a panel on it yesterday and got to hear a lot from some folks who have been able to win it in other places. I know a lot of organizations are thinking about this because it's something that not only could lead to the solutions that we need and better informed by the community on what folks need, but also like generally help us have a healthier democracy here. We have a very unhealthy democracy in Miami-Dade. We have really corrupt politics where the same families stay in power. A lot of influence from special interests, not a lot of representation. There was like one study that found that out of 50 major cities, Miami had the least civic participation. And this sort of process of participatory budgeting can get us on the path of breaking through that, of folks being invested, being educated on these systems. There's a lot of complexity about a budget in a county versus a city and those sorts of things, but can really put us on the path where folks are invested and have ownership here, and we can have the future we deserve. So that's an exciting thing for the future of equitable governance. I hope we can bring here. And it's something that we're definitely thinking about at Engage. And I'll actually say there's something encouraging happening right now that's not participatory budgeting, but Daniela Levine-Cava in her first year as mayor has launched this project, Thrive 305, where the idea is to survey the community, 10 to 15,000 surveys of the community in Miami-Dade, to listen to where folks are at, what are folks' priorities right now on COVID, on housing, on safety, to be able to inform her budget and her first year action plan. So it's really encouraging. I'm gonna drop the website for that. I know Catalyst is part of this project, that project as well. So yeah, really excited about what that says about where we can go for equitable governance from here, and a sign that times are different in Miami-Dade right now. This is not something I've ever seen done before or anything like it. And it's just year one. So excited about what's to come and for us to be able to be a big part and needed part of making that happen.
Thank you, Gilbert. I was just gonna run and put that link in the chat, but thank you for volunteering to do that. And please share any ways people can follow and get plugged in to Engage, although we will be sending it out. Okay, so we'll pass it to Rachel. Rachel's with Dream Defenders to talk about your work with reimagining community safety. And if you can please mention the work you guys are doing on HB1. Everyone should follow Dream Defenders on Instagram. If you have Instagram, it's the best. But they're doing amazing work on that as well. So I would love if you could plug that.
Thanks, Alalem. Hey everyone, my name is Rachel and I organize with the Dream Defenders. The Dream Defenders was founded in 2012 after the murder of Trayvon Martin by Black and brown students across the state of Florida. Our political vision is called the Freedom Papers. And it's really about, what would it look like to live in a state that actually offered people the basic things we need to survive: housing, jobs, healthcare, education, instead of living in a state that spends all of its resources criminalizing us. We spend $50,000 statewide to incarcerate a child and only $8,000 to educate them. That's just a huge indication of our politicians' priorities. And in 2013, after George Zimmerman was acquitted, Dream Defenders occupied the Florida Capitol for 31 days. And I think through that experience, we got like a really rude awakening in terms of like who actually runs our state. We literally slept in the Capitol and saw the people who our politicians are in bed with, folks like Marion Hammer, who's like the most notorious NRA lobbyist in the country. Stand Your Ground was an NRA backed law. And she's pushed more policies than any other NRA lobbyist in any other state. Folks like the GEO Group, our politicians take more money from the private prison industry than almost any other state in the country. We were advocating for days to get a meeting with Rick Scott. And by the time we did, he showed up to the meeting with Confederate flag boots on, which is just like a sign of where our politicians are at. And so through this experience, like Dream Defenders got kind of like a lot of national notoriety, and a lot of people were really inspired to take action in this moment. But we realized we didn't have power, and that like we live in a state where like, it's been trifecta Republican control for 20 years. we have one of the most highest funded Republican parties, and that that there's many people, and maybe the majority of people, who actually agree with us on our issues, but that they aren't actually organized to exercise their power collectively to actually change the conditions in our communities. And so, you know, this year was sort of another experience in like, how do we build power to actually win things? And like, you know, we saw huge mobilizations across the country, across Florida, in Miami. Almost a third of Florida counties took action regularly around the murder of George Floyd. You know, here in Miami, thousands of people were turning out. And this was right around the time of the budget fight that Zelalem and Gilbert talked about. And we were able to turn out hundreds of people to basically demand that money be moved away from the police. We spend a third of our budget in Miami-Dade County on the police almost, and put it towards other things like housing, like, you know, all sorts of social services and, you know, environmental programs. And basically the commission responded by, I think, not thinking that we were like connected to real people, that we were just activists, but that we weren't rooted in what the communities actually wanted. And then also during this time, you know, this was happening during like a very, you know, polarizing election. And so, you know, the Republicans were putting out all sorts of attack ads like, oh, Danielle Levine Cava wants to defund the police. And so she wants chaos in your community. And so there was a lot we were up against in terms of propaganda that was being fed to our communities and causing lots of confusion about the concept of defund, about the idea of, you know, how do we move money away from police into social services. And so, you know, we didn't like win the things we were demanding on the budget fight. And there's like lots we're trying to do to figure out how we re-strategize going into this year. And not only that, but like also our Republican Trump Jr. governor, basically at the height of the uprising, announced this really dangerous legislation, House Bill 1, that is basically meant to repress Black Lives Matter and all protest movements, and to destroy the political power that we actually are building towards. And so this bill is completely unconstitutional. It is super racist. The first thing it does is it criminalizes protesters in all sorts of ways. It creates a new type of crime called disorderly riot or something, Ida can remind me of the exact term, but it basically says if you are 9 or more people gathering in the middle of the street, gives you an automatic felony, which we know in Florida means you could lose your voting rights, you know, lots of like, you know, do hard jail, you know, hard to go to prison. The bill also says that it's a mandatory minimum of 15 years if you tear down a Confederate statue. And it also really destroys our ability to move the budget fights at a local level, because what it does is it says that if any local municipality, so a city, a county, decides to move money away from police, that the governor can come in and override it. So this bill actually has huge implications for our ability to actually fight the budget fight at the local level. And it also does all sorts of things around basically removing civil penalties, so the threat of a lawsuit for people who kill protesters. So this bill is really, really dangerous. It criminalizes protests. It actually hinders our ability to fight for defund and decarceration at the local level. And so we are mobilizing all hands on deck to fight the bill. So on February 17th, we are going to be having a big statewide meeting to talk about the bill and for folks to figure out how they can get involved. We also have a petition. We will have local meetings coming up in Miami. Also, we'll be setting up meetings with our local legislators, mobilizing people to Tallahassee to give testimony. So I'll drop the link in the chat for how to get involved. But this is really, really dangerous, and we really need to show that Floridians don't want this, that we see this as dangerous to our basic rights. Because right now the governor is very much saying that people want this. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we, we are headed into the county commission voted to basically build this $400 million jail in Miami. So in the middle of COVID, when people don't have basic resources, our county commission was like, you know what we need? A $400 million jail. And so we are going to be launching a listening project in the next couple of months to actually go to our communities and talk to them about the jail and what they think about it. Talk to them about the budget and what they think about the fact that we spend a third of our budget on the police, and see what the community's priorities are. So we would love for as many people to be involved in that process as possible. We'll be canvassing and have COVID safe ways to do so, but we'll also be doing online focus groups and other ways that we're bringing people in. So would love for y'all to be a part of that as well. And then I think just the last thing I'll say is like, we really, really are trying to gear up for 2022. And like, we're doing these fights and doing, this campaign work, but we really want to figure out how we actually use the energy of the people we're pulling into the campaign work, use the energy of the people who are showing up to protest across the state to actually unseat some of these really, really dangerous Republicans who are up for re-election in 2022. So like DeSantis, his time is done. We have to get him out. He is just trying to bring Trump's political project, just make Florida ground zero for it. And so really looking to get folks mobilized into our campaign work and then ready next year for a big electoral fight. So we need all hands on deck. I'm going to drop the links in the chat to get involved, and just thank you again to Catalyst for giving us the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Yeah, definitely follow Dream Defenders. There's just so much good information on their channels. All right, last but not least, we have Brittany. Brittany's with Power U, and Power U made such an impact on me. I think been aware of the organization, but it was actually a Dream Defenders event where some of the youth that they organized were speaking, and it was just like so unbelievably powerful to see young people organizing and like stepping up to make their schools a better place and their communities a better place. So anyways, I'll let Brittany share more about what they're doing at Power U, but I love that organization.
Thank you.
So
and I also got introduced by the youth coming into one of my classes and just like taking over. Basically, they were just like, actually, it's like this, and this is what we need to change. And I was like, okay, sign me up where I need to go. But so I am an interracial organizer at Power U, and Power U is really a reproductive justice organization that works with youth to kind of reframe their understanding, or all of our understanding of what safety is and how we kind of look at it. So right now we currently have, I guess you could say 4 or 5 different campaigns going on. Our normal campaigns are the counselors, not cops. So instead of having cops in our schools, we want more counselors. The next one is the comprehensive sex ed campaign that we have, and it's basically just, again, with that reimagining safety. If we had more access to the information as youth, so much more trauma and pain could be avoided in the future. So really pushing and emphasizing that we need comprehensive sex ed, and something that we haven't really gotten off the ground yet because it's kind of creeping up in the legislation is SB 41 or SB 410. I guess I don't really know how they call it, but and it's basically like getting parents to opt in to sex ed, right? And that's really, really harmful, and making sure that certain things aren't talked about in the classroom, in the curriculum, because of how they deal with so-called child pornography and things of that nature. So we're definitely going to be starting something to push back against that and to fight against that. I particularly, there's one more campaign, the safety for pre-K, so free pre-K for all. So the idea behind that one is if we give the kids free VPK in the beginning, right, they'll be better resourced and better able to go through school in the future, right? So if we start off and make sure they have what they need in the beginning, they'll be better off in the future. So those are the top 3 main campaigns. We're also organizing teachers now. So intergenerational basically means getting with youth and adults. So there's 2 new intergenerational organizers. Gabe is working with teachers and trying to get them involved into the different work that we do. And is it skipping? No. Oh, okay, because it looked like mine was skipping. So yeah, he's trying to get teachers involved, and what I'm doing is trying to get the parents and community members in South Dade involved in what we do. So many of you are from the area, you know, or might know that South Dade is really not organized, right? So the things that are going on in North Miami are not happening in the South, and the resources that are being provided to the North are not happening in the South. So my goal is to figure out who has power, what's going on, what are the issues, what are the concerns that are going on down here. So as I've been meeting with them, the biggest thing that South Dade is worried about is gun violence. And if you guys were not aware, since Thanksgiving, we've had like 50 shootings in Miami since just Thanksgiving, right? So it's really a big concern. And some of our commissioners are talking about bringing in the FBI and declaring a state of emergency in South Dade. And, you know, as the many of us in this organization, we're kind of not with that. We're pretty much against bringing in more police power into the community to kind of solve community issues. So the campaign that we're coming up with, and I am working with community members on this now, so like nothing is like set in stone, but what we're working on is called Wrap Around South Dade. It's basically around making sure that we have all of the services that we need in order to feel safe in the community. So we're starting with a survey, very similar to the Thrive 305, but trying to focus specifically on the issues that are in South Dade and not just overall in the Miami area, right? So looking at it from a safety perspective, but focusing on housing and education, right? So if our housing is taken care of and our education is accurate, right, we won't have as much of the trauma and the pain and the issues that we have in the community in the future. So we're going to start doing phone banking and COVID safe canvassing, and we're going to start doing all of those trainings in March. So for people to go out and knock on doors, but again, we will create a survey similar to that one that we can pass around so that folks can kind of, if you are in the South Dade area, again, like we love North Miami, woo-hoo, but we're trying to help South Dade, right? The whole goal of the work that we're doing in this campaign is wrapping around South Dade and making sure that the South has the resources that they need, just like the North. So if you know folks that are in the South, living in the South, working in the South, like teachers, or even have to come down here, we're trying to figure out what are the demands that those folks want to make to the people in power, right? So what kind of things do you guys want to push down here that actually matter predominantly to South Dade? Is something that maybe people in North Miami might not be experiencing. So that's pretty much what we're doing. And most of that work will get started up in March. We are doing community events to try to, first of all, bring people together in South Dade because it's very siloed. So we're trying to emphasize, like, it's not just Parian, Naranja, Homestead, Florida City, or South Miami Heights. It's South Dade, right? And we need to do things for the whole and the collective. So we're trying to emphasize coming together in the communities, but from different communities, and doing things as a collective as well. So they'll be on the lookout for different community events. We have our first one, the 17th, which is a community cleanup. So instead of like going to the park and cleaning up the park, you go outside of your house, because we're in South Dade, right? These are the people we're working with. You go outside of your house and clean up your community and talk to your neighbors about this survey and the issues that they're seeing. And then we can come back and kind of talk about what we learned at that community event and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. We do bi-weekly meetings every Wednesday from 6 to 8. There's no links, so sorry, fam. But you can definitely shoot me an email, and I'll drop my email in the box.
Thank you, Brittany. That's amazing work. It reminds me, I was in the panel with Tim Black from Cahoots, and he was saying how, like, they in Oregon, they needed all the services, like they were really service rich, and that was like what enabled them to be able to have an alternative to calling the police for every little thing, because they have like rich alternatives, you know? So that's great. And actually you already have some volunteers in the chat. So, and that's like perfect. That's what we want to move to. So for the audience, you can come off mute. We're like a small group, unless you're not speaking, but you can speak. You don't have to, just put it in the chat. But if you have any questions, comments, ideas, you know, for any of the panelists or questions for anyone here, I'll invite you all to do that. We have like 15 minutes, so we can open it up for a fuller conversation. Anyone, any questions? Or if panelists have questions for each other, that's fine too. I think a lot of us are really well connected, but in case we aren't.
I'll just say shout out to Brittany, that work of like trying to have a South Dade unified as South Dade, because I think we've heard that too, of like folks are a lot of different neighborhoods and not, we might think of it as South Dade. I'm in the north, but yeah, that sounds really dope and important. So just want to shout that out.
See, I love Power U.
Yeah, it's been super stressful, and I'm also a student at UM right now, so I'm only organizing part-time, so like it's a whole like completely different feat in that arena. But I think what I'm learning, because I'm also from North Carolina, I'm not originally from this area, what I'm learning is that once we say like we want to do something together, people are open, right? But then when it comes down to like actually getting people together, because South Dade is so big, it's just like, I'm not driving to Homestead. You know, like I'm not I would love to support your event, but I'm not driving to Homestead. So the idea that I'm trying to work with now is doing like dual, like the schools are doing. So if we have a community event, if we have something, since everybody's on Zoom all the time anyway, having like a Zoom version and an in-person version. So it's like, if you don't really make it, if you can't make it to this, whatever it is, you can still kind of participate, hear the conversation, engage with the people, network and things like that. So that's what we're going to try, because, you know, everything's on Zoom these days anyway. But again, that's pretty much where the issue is lying in. It's just so big where it's like, how can we kind of come together?
Well, yeah, I was gonna pass it to Anna Ruth. So.
Oh, I know. I had a question. Brittany, when is your next meeting? Is it this Wednesday or next Wednesday?
It's the 17th. So, I mean.
Okay. Sorry. I have to look at my calendar.
That's what I was about to say. Let me look, because with this pandemic, y'all, and the way meetings and class and everything. So, we just had a meeting on Wednesday.
That's the next
and
one.
we will have our next meeting on the 17th.
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
bi-weekly after that.
Okay, I'll send you an email so you can like send me the info and everything, because I run a community group with Catalyst there, and we call them Community Champions. It's in the South Dade area, and I have teachers on my group and they're really involved. So we would love to partner in this and connect.
That would be amazing, definitely.
So I'll email you.
Yay, collaboration is happening. Anyone else?
I just have like a sort of a thought that I haven't fully formulated that I would just like want to hear people's like ideas and thoughts around. Because I think a lot about the budgeting work that's been done and just like going to public meetings and speaking out, even like the Tallahassee Dade Days, and just like how it's oftentimes people that are already somewhat involved or connected to an organization. And so, you know, what ways can we connect with people a little bit more organically that aren't already in that space? I don't feel like they're advocates. I'm thinking about, you know, now that I'm sharing the Thrive 305 survey with folks, and I'm actually getting responses that are like, oh, this is super cool, I'm going to do this for sure, from people that are just not at all engaged. And so wondering if that's like a step in the direction of getting people to just feel like this is part of just a communal responsibility, and not like it's because I'm an advocate or I'm trying to kind of move into a different space. Just like, this is part of our everyday lives and we should have a say in the things. And so I just wonder if this is something you've all thought about in a more like formal way, how to do that and be more organic and bring people into the fold that way.
I mean, something we've been thinking about is like, even if people aren't plugged into like our kind of social justice organizations, people are organized. And how do we like go to people in the places that they are organized? Like, you know, building relationships with churches or, you know, neighborhood, like the neighborhood community groups, or, you know, go to the club and canvas outside the club, but just like thinking about where are the places that people are already gathering, and how do we go to those places and politicize those places. And so with this listening project that we're doing, that's similar to the listening project that Power U is doing, we're really trying to figure out like what types of partnerships can we build with some of those types of formations in order to reach new sets of people, because really the only way we're going to be able to like build the power we need to win is by like figuring out how to pull in like tens of thousands of more people into our movement. And so trying to think about, how do we meet people like literally physically where they're at?
If I could echo that too, I think I've always been kind of curious how to crack like the cultural chambers kind of piece, right? Because the Florida Chamber of Commerce is so contradictory to small business values as well. They serve their biggest donors, which are going to be Publix, HCA, Comcast, FPL, you know, all these different industries. And so how do we also build relationships and with those small businesses and with the local and cultural chambers? And also I know everyone is so aware of this, of breaking like the digital divide, right? Because there's so many communities that, you know, don't have access to these things. And I'll say one thing, my twin sister rep Anna Escamani is doing a Hey Neighbor effort right now, off election, right? But they are canvassing every weekend in neighborhoods with COVID-19 materials and really focusing on those neighborhoods that aren't often, you know, plugged into these things, don't have the same political acumen as other folks, right? Because they just are struggling to make ends meet. But this is like where our people are, right? And so, and during the election cycle, you know, these folks they also are often ignored. I'll say like folks like my sister don't take anyone for granted, right? But these folks rarely have folks come into their neighborhoods, right? And these are the people I know that we reach out to. And I think a lot of the work around the wellness checks of COVID, of just like truly just caring about you, is so powerful, right? And I think a lot of us have been doing that. And I think we need to continue doing that, right? Just checking in with folks and asking like, what are your needs? And I'm preaching to the choir, but I think that's such an important piece that, you know, folks don't do enough, right? And just creating those communities where they don't exist yet.
I will add too, I think one of the most successful things we've done is like telling people to reach out to their families. Because I feel like you get that person, and then like, for example, we have like leadership training programs, and I've had like an entire extended family take it, number one, by like asking them to reach out, like having it be a space where youth can come, for example. So like the grandkids can come and the kids, and like then we would have like celebrations, which I think is another good thing to do. So like we do a graduation, and then like the cousin that comes wants to do it. So I think like, because I don't think it's all the time where I think it's really rare to have like one family where everyone is like super up on social justice work. It's really rare if you have that, but I don't know. I like working in networks, and like everyone said, like building relationships is really important. Cool. Any other questions, or any people have other thoughts?